Okay, we're live, everyone. And as people are coming in, we are going to show a couple of just a slideshow of some pictures and some memories from people of Mr. Mott.
It's starting, I can't talk.
You said it lasts 2 hours?
Yes.
If everyone can mute if they're not currently speaking, that would help.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We would like to start by showing you a short excerpt from a concert at Stuyvesant. This is the beginning of the Mozart's Requiem, where Mr. Mott was singing with us, and you will see him on the stage. He is kind of in the center, in the back. So please take a listen as we begin. Mr. Stefan, can we play the next video with the Mozart? Mr. Stefan, it's not working or it's not playing. Could we share the Mozart Requiem, please, the opening?
First of all, good evening, and I'd like to thank you all for coming. We're here to celebrate the life of Philip Mott. Philip had a special love for his students, and I think his students also had a special love for him. First, I would just like to thank Dina Ingram and Stefan Harold for putting together such a wonderful program, and thank you to my co-host, Liliya Shamazov. Thank you very much. And I'd like to welcome staff and students from Mary Bergtram High School, from Jackie Kennedy Onassis High School, and of course from Stuyvesant. And I'd like to introduce our esteemed principal now, Principal Yu.
Thank you, Ms. Garber, and good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all again for being here tonight to celebrate Mr. Philip Mott. This ceremony really is an opportunity to pay our respects to him and his family, while also celebrating his contributions to our school community. I did not have the good fortune of meeting and working with him, but I'm certain that I would have really liked him. One, he was an English teacher, and then two, he had a really infectious smile. And today and this past year, we could use a lot more people like him who are constantly smiling. It's a beautiful smile, and again, I think what we've seen and what we know and the tribute that's going to happen tonight, I think will speak volumes about the impact that he's had on our entire community. Everyone wonders, what might be said or who might be in attendance when we pass. And I do believe Mr. Mott would be extremely happy to know how many people are here, how many people have been influenced by him, and again, all the wonderful things that are going to be said tonight to pay our respects. I'm going to keep my comments very brief because there are more important people who have a lot to say, and we really do want to showcase and celebrate his life. So I want to say thank you to everyone who is in attendance today, including all our current members of our staff and our past staff. If I also have not had the good fortune of meeting all of you as well, our current students and former students. And I'm seeing in the chat some of the ways of us connecting. And while today is one of both a bit of mourning, it's also quite a bit of celebrating and connecting and reconnecting. And again, to all the families and other members of our school community who are here in attendance. Want to give a big special shout out to Shamazov and Ms. Garber for organizing this ceremony. This would not have happened without their tremendous efforts in trying to coordinate and get everyone to contribute. Mr. Stefan and Ms. Ingram for all the logistical support, and clearly to all of you who are in attendance and who've continued to provide anecdotes and memories and wonderful photos for tonight. And finally, I want to acknowledge that Mr. Mott's cousin, Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. III, will be in attendance later this evening. He had a prior engagement, but we are fortunate to have him, and I'm certain he'll want to say a few words about Mr. Mott. So in closing, I do want to again say thank you to everyone for attending this evening. What I hope for is that we can let Mr. Mott's joy and kind of infectious smile fill our spirits tonight as we celebrate his life and what he brought to our school community. We will both mourn, but again, I think what he would want, even though I did not know him, but I'm sure based upon what I've seen and that smile, he'd want us to be filled with that joy. And so looking forward to this evening, and I'm sure all of you are as well. So thank you again, and I'll hand it back to Ms. Garber.
Thank you very much. Next up is Valerie Halsey, a cousin of Philip.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. I know that Philip would be so happy. I think he would be laughing and just giggling to know that so many people loved and thought so much of him. He was my cousin, but not only my cousin, but my double first cousin. His mother and my mother were sisters, and his father and my father were brothers. So we were actually brother and sister as well as cousins. I just want to take the time. It's still difficult to realize that he's no longer here, but he was just a beautiful person. Everyone he met, they gravitated to him and they became lifelong friends. He would help anyone in need. All of my family. I mean, he was just the life of the party. Holiday times, every holiday, starting off at the beginning of the year, New Year's Eve, you could find him in church before midnight to ring in the new year. We would always get together New Year's Eve. Some New Year's we were together, some we weren't, but we were always in spirit. And Easter, Mother's Day, he loved the holidays because that meant that we would always get together and be with family. Actually, his mother would take turns cooking on holidays, and then it was my mother's turn to cook, and we would have the celebrations at her house. And he was always there, just making everything so much more pleasurable and funny, and just a lively celebration. And whenever I would see him enter the room, I would get so happy. I remember one time we went to my mother's sister's funeral, and it was me and my mother that were the ones that were coming from New York. She lived in Alabama, and his mother couldn't make it. So, we said, well, we'll be the ones representing New York. And then all of a sudden there he is on the plane at the very last minute, because he, knew how much it would mean to the family, and to represent his mother because she couldn't make it. And it was just these things. He went above and beyond, to make everything, pleasurable and happy, and to make other people happy. If you ever needed anything, and he could do it, help you, or and whatever it is, he always went above and beyond, just to make things, better. And I just have so many memories of him from the beginning of my life. I know he went to Gompers High School, which was in the Bronx, and we lived right across the street from the school. And at that time, I think at that time, I must have been maybe about five, maybe 3 or 4. And every day after school, he would come over to the house because he loved children so much. And he knew that, I was there. And my mother said he would always come over and just hold me in his arms and just, enjoy just doing these types of things with children. He loved children so much. And that's why I know he loved all of his students so much. I mean, I met a few, and you could just see the relationship that they had. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful teacher, student. And beyond that, it was he was just a beautiful person. And, we're going to miss him dearly. I'm going to miss him dearly. And, I just still can't believe it. I can just see his face now. I can hear him talking. I can just actually visualize him, right there, which is a good thing. So I'll know that he's always here with me. But those are the words that I just wanted to leave with everyone, which I know you already know, just to let him know what a beautiful person he was, and a beautiful brother to me.
Thank you very much, Valerie. Next up, Valeria.
Hi, how are you? I'm Philip's cousin, Valeria from Pittsburgh, and he was always so delightful to be around. He was just like a lot of fun, and he loved his students. He would talk about you guys, and it hurt him to his core when he left. He was very, it just made, he just kept on saying, why don't they want me or whatever. But the thing is, he would, whenever he would hear from his students, or they would call him or invite him someplace, he would be so overwhelmed, and it meant so much to him. He sort of felt like, well, I must not have did a bad job because the students like me and everything like that. But it just, sometimes people have been through so much in their lifetime that they just can't take, it just don't take much to take them over the edge. And, but Philip, he didn't weigh anybody else down with that, the hurts of his soul. He always wanted to make somebody laugh, pick up somebody else's spirits and everything. And he sure did. Boy, he was, he'd walk into the room, he'd light it up. And I tell you what, every letter he would call me, and he said, oh, well, I heard from one of my students, and they wanted me to friend them. I said, well, Philip, you should. I don't know if it's appropriate, because I was a teacher. I said, well, yeah, Philip, but he was just always doubt about other people caring for him, because it was, sometimes you can go through so much in life that it's hard to believe when something good happens. But it really made his day when he would hear from one of his students, or they would write, or they would call, or he'd run into one of them or anything like that. So, I thank everybody who did that. And he was, as far as a son, his mother couldn't have a better son. He was with her. He would get up around 7 in the morning, 6 or 7 in the morning, and go over, see about her. And when she went into the hospital, as soon as he would come from there, he was taking classes at Juilliard. This is after his retirement, because he stayed busy. He was in 2 choirs. He had classes at Juilliard that he was taking. He did sing at Carnegie Hall. Different things that he had done. He's done so much with his life. And but still, you still have that. But he did love everybody. I want to share with you that picture of him and Yolanda. The outfit I'm wearing today, which is why I have the hat on. This is what I wore when Yolanda's celebration of life. And if you want to share the screen, somebody said, let's say share the screen, and there it is. But other than that, I don't know what I'm supposed to do other than hold this picture up. Let me see if I can get a little
Can
bit.
we share the screen?
Huh?
No, I just repeated what you
She
said.
has it on here.
Oh.
She could share the screen.
Yeah, could you see the picture? Anyway, I'm sure those 2 are laughing again. Because it's just like when you have come to a certain point in life that you graduate to a bigger life, a larger life, and a more fulfilling life. And I believe with all my heart, that is where they are now, just laughing and joking and having a good time. And I'll just see him when I get there. I told him to save me a dance. And so I don't know if you can see this picture, but I'll try to put it in a text or something if anybody wants to get a copy of it, they're welcome to it. So I'm going to go, but I just want to say he was a delightful person. And, his mother and Yolanda, he was so close to them that I think that he wanted to be with them more than anything, but he did love everybody. He was a very loving person, and he appreciated the friendships and the good times that he did have with everyone. And with that, I'll move on and let somebody else talk.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Life is a gift, and we're just here for a visit. And so, for a visit. I think that the students become your family. And I think that's what happened with Philip. I think his students became his family.
They really did. They really did. Children that he didn't have.
Right.
He had more than he just, they filled his life.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Miss Carol Johnson, another cousin.
Well, I'm like the neighborhood cousin. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting us. Phil, it's so difficult to speak of Phil in the past tense. He was Phil to me. A friendship, a kinship that lasted a little over 60 years. When I met Phil, we were in the 2nd grade. We transferred to an elementary school, and at the same school, both of our mothers became fast friends, as well as colleagues there. Phil was a joy. He was funny. He was gregarious. He was outgoing. He was silly. He was crazy. Phil was so many things, and then at the same time, he could be so alone in a room of 1,000 people and just sort of shrink back. There was a conversation we used to have a lot. He just wasn't sure why people loved him. He would say, "You love me, don't you? You really love me." And I'd say, "Of course I do. Why is that so difficult to grasp?" He said, I don't know. In that high pitch Phil voice that I just can't reach. But he'd say, "You really do." I said, "Of course." He said, "I love you too. I love you so much. Thank you for loving me." And he'd give me the biggest bear hug, and Phil wanted to be loved so badly. And sometimes he didn't realize how many people really, really cherished him. If love could have kept him here, we wouldn't be having this ceremony tonight. If love could have kept him here, we would not be speaking of him in the past tense. That's so difficult. 60 years to speak of someone in the past tense. But I know one thing. I can't say goodbye to my friend. I can't. We spent a lot of time together. We recently had a few years back, we had a reunion. It's a whole bunch of us, about 12 of us, some from kindergarten and some from the first grade. And we were planning another reunion, but I can't say goodbye to my friend. So instead, I'm just going to leave it with, may the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent, one from another. Amen. Phil, I loved you dearly. Rest easy, my friend. Rest easy. And I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you very much. And he hears you. Oh, sorry, did someone say something? Thank you very much. Next up, Mr. Stephen Barker, another cousin.
So, hello everyone and good evening, and a couple of disclaimers here. Much as it would have been an honor to have been related to Philip, we weren't cousins. We grew up together in the same project, and you'll, as Carol mentioned, we had a reunion a couple of years ago, and that's where we reconnected. And during that reunion session that we were having, I took pictures. And at the end of the evening, I took a look at the pictures, and I didn't understand why I had so many pictures of Philip. And, you know, I mean, individual pictures, right? I had pictures of the group and this one and that one. Maybe I had, no offense, Carol, I may have had 2 or 3 pictures of you, but I had like 7 or 8 pictures of Philip. And it was just something about the guy. I mean, something about his charisma, his wit, you know, and we sort of bonded because I had so much respect for English teachers. I don't think that English teachers get enough credit for what they do. You know, it was an English teacher who changed my life. And as a matter of fact, this English teacher got me into a boarding school. And if I hadn't gone to that boarding school, I would have ended up at Stuyvesant. So Philip and I sort of bonded over that. And I got to tell you, he was just a special guy, and he had so much presence. And you know, they teach people how to communicate, express their thoughts, and we would have been great friends. And I'll tell you, the reason I know that is because after that reunion, we started talking on the phone. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and Phil would call me up, and we would talk about things that were going on in the world. You know, all the craziness that's happened in the last few years. We would talk about it, but it was never bitter, and it was never maudlin. It was always basically a conversation with another human. And the way he expressed himself was just so precise and so on point. And you know, we need more communicators like that in this world. And he never complained about health issues. I had no inkling of what he was going through with his own personal health. And as Carol mentioned, we were supposed to have another reunion, and I was so looking forward to seeing him again. And you know, much as Carol said, I'm not going to say goodbye to him, but I'm going to cherish his memory. And I just want his true family, everyone who's here, to know that I absolutely cherish the few moments that I spent with Philip. He was a special individual. And thank you so much for letting me express myself.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next up, David Belton.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank Barbara, who helped set this up. I know she has a whole team behind her, pulling this program together. It's wonderful. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
No, it's not just me.
I know it's the whole team.
Yes.
The whole team, the administration, the students, the alumni, everybody. And Philip meant a whole lot to me. He talked a lot about you, particularly the students. We had lots of conversations. I was his friend, not a relative, but a friend. And we met in 2006 in Atlanta. He was very close to Yolanda King, and many probably would consider him, or at least he probably thought he was the fifth child of Coretta and Dr. King, but she introduced us and hopped in the car and got on the plane. He turned around to me and said, well, I'm going to hop in the car with you and just hang out with you. So I went, okay. So we get in the car and I said, where we're going? He said, where we're going? We're going to Coretta's. I went, Scott King's? And he said, yes. So he's from New York, we're in Atlanta. You would think he would know directions, but he didn't. And it took us a while for us to get there. But we got to Coretta Scott King's house and he left me. He just left me. But had it not been for Philip, I would not have been asked on the last King holiday that Coretta Scott King had on this side of life. I went into her bedroom to meet with her because whoever the visitor was who was supposed to come did not show up. And I was able to have some precious memories, moments with Mrs. King to thank her for everything that she had done. I would not have been there had it not been for Philip. He left me initially, but he made up for it. And then in 2013, I took a train from Washington, D.C. to New York, rented a car, and brought him back to Washington so that he could participate in the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. We get to the Lincoln Memorial and he leaves me. He goes up to wherever the family was sitting. I sat in the back, but he was so engaging, everybody knew him. Everybody wanted to talk to him. So it was a fun time. Leading up to 2021, we talked just about every week, either early in the morning or very late at night. And it was in those conversations that he would talk about you. We attended the Congressional Black Caucus, the National Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem, the March on Washington Film Festival in DC. I had him to come to Charlotte, to Greensboro, North Carolina for Diversity Day, where he was a keynote speaker. And in the middle of his speech, there was an earthquake that occurred on the eastern part of North Carolina, not far from where we were. So I told him he moved the people in North Carolina. He was not just in two choirs after he left Stuyvesant, he was in three. And he also went to Juilliard. And he was just so excited because whatever you all did in the choir there at Stuyvesant really inspired him. And he had joy. He had joy in his heart and he wanted to learn more about that craft. I'll miss my friend, his quick wit, his love for Shakespeare, his quest for learning, and the friendship that he gave me. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Stuyvesant. Thank you, family.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think sometimes the way you can honor someone is that to incorporate the qualities that you love in them into yourself. So that if what you love is his friendliness, his warmth, his smile, these are qualities that we can incorporate into ourselves. And that's a way that you can honor people whom you love who, set this example. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Peter Wild Bethia, but I'm not sure if he has audio. Mr. Bethia, can you hear me? Okay, so Mr. Bethia has written a letter, and I am going to read the letter on his behalf. And this letter is entitled Memories of Philip. Philip was my church brother and a dear friend. Philip possessed qualities that everyone would like to have in a relationship. He was caring, compassionate, and highly conscious about the injustices that exist in society. He was articulate, creative, empathetic, clear-headed, disciplined, genuine, dependable, reliable, and sociable. Philip was a sensitive and vulnerable man, in tune to life situations. He was socially and politically grounded in understanding the struggles of African Americans and Africans on the continent. He loved art, theater, choral, classical, jazz music, and particularly African American spirituals. Philip was the kind of person you wanted to have at a social gathering because he brought intellectual insight and a different political perspective to a discussion. We had many of these discussions at my home. I will certainly miss those stimulating conversations. He had an incredible bond with his mother. Her long illness and her death had a profound impact on his emotional health. During her illness, he visited and called her every day. After Sunday church service, I would take him to do the weekly food shopping and deliver it to his mom. He was devoted and relentless in making sure his mom got the best of care. Philip was unwavering and faithful to his Christian beliefs. Rest in peace, my brother in Christ. And that was from Mr. Peter Wild Bethia. If you're hearing me, Mr. Bethia, thank you for that very beautiful letter. Thank you, and thank you. Okay, thank you. And just give me 1 second, okay? And we are moving to a musical dedication.
Yeah, we would like to play for you a musical dedication to Philip Mott by Mr. Thomasitis, Joseph Thomasitis, our orchestra director at Stuyvesant, who will be joined by some of his students in this performance for Mr. Mott.
Oh my God, that was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful.
We're all going to end up crying here.
Yes.
Beautiful. There's another song. There's a song that applies to a certain religion, but it really is so general that everyone could relate to it. I think some people here are familiar with this song, and it's called My Yiddish Mama. And it also, if you can listen to it, it really doesn't matter who your mother, I mean, it doesn't matter who it's just a very beautiful song. I'm recommending listening to that song. Okay, thank you very much. And next we have a student and friend from Murray Bergstrom, Jasi Casa Takara.
Thank you. And first, let me say thank you to those who are responsible for this solemn celebration, to you, Barbara Garber, Dina Ingram, and to the entire Stuyvesant community. The question that has been asked of these last few weeks of me has been, so how did you know Mr. Mott? And though I typically respond, he was my English and drama high school teacher, the description seemed to be hollow and inadequate. I don't know if there's a word or title in this vast English lexicon which can adequately describe my relationship with Mr. Mott. It was 98. I was 14 and a freshman at JKO. I was a timid kid, but intimidated by the new hallways that would become my life for the next 4 years. Not knowing anyone or having any friends, toward the end of the first day of school, it was time to go into English class. And sitting on the top of the desk was this tall, skinny brother who at the time had this mad scientist-like hairstyle, which told me one thing: Jahi, you're gonna fail this class. His demeanor was no nonsense, and I knew that I had to convince someone to transfer me immediately. So at roll call, he read off my name, Christopher Smith. I stood up and raised my hand to say present. But actually, sir, I prefer to be called Jahi. He said, why? I said, well, you see, Christopher Smith is a slave name, and so I've given myself the name Jahi Casa Taharka, which better connects me to my true history and my identity. And there was a long silence, and finally he looked at me over his pursed lips and he said, sit down. At the end of class, I was racing for the door. He tapped me on my shoulder and he said, you know, you are one sharp little dude. How do you say that name again? From that day on, I had not only a teacher, but I found in him a mentor and an ally. And at the end of each class, the bell would ring, class was dismissed, but I never wanted to leave. I was in awe of this very wise man who seemed to know everything and everybody and would not hesitate to joke on you or anyone else. And feeling out of place, he created a home for me at school. We both had a love for the theater, and he asked, or rather told me, that I was going to be in the first theater production of JKO in a show called A Raisin in the Sun. I jumped at the opportunity. He probably didn't realize it, but this was a monumental time in my life. Often I was teased for not being very athletic, and finally I had an opportunity to showcase my athletic ability in the arena I was good at. And this opened many doors for me. Rehearsal would end and the bell would ring, and I could not leave. He would share with me the most prolific and funniest stories at the time of people he knew, including historical figures. Through Mr. Mott, I was able to meet and speak to his dear cousin and sister-in-law, the late, great Yolanda King, daughter of Martin Luther King Jr. I even had an opportunity to sit in on a phone call with her mother, someone else he was very close to, Mrs. Coretta Scott King. And people I have long admired all of my life were now within arm's reach. The bell rang again and high school was over. 4 years, but there was no way I was ready to leave Mott University. Every girlfriend I ever had to first be cleared by Mr. Mott. I say to the young lady, babe, what you doing today? And she'd say, nothing. Why? And I said, well, come with me. We going to Mr. Mott's house. You need to meet him. And he'd meet them and laugh that gregarious laugh. He would tell jokes, all at my expense. And the moment they would leave the room, he would look at me and say something like, you sure like them big, I see. Sitting around the table with his beautiful mother, the late Mrs. Etoy Mott, his cousin Valerie, who I'm so happy to see, who just has the warmest spirit, and Aunt Fran. I felt very much like I was a part of the family. I think he did too. I continued to do some acting after that play in high school, dozens of shows and plays across the country, and there hasn't been one show I've ever done anywhere in the country when Mr. Mott was not there. He was always in the audience. I always wanted his nod of approval. When I tied the knot, it was important that Mr. Mott meet and approve my wife. He did. In 2017, he and his dear friend and mine, Dr. Jan McCrae, came to my wedding. He never said it, but he looked at me in that moment with my blue tux on with a tremendous love. And I wonder if he thought back to that first day of class when he told me to sit down. I wonder if he thought about when we would grab a train together as I'd watch him literally knock down people to get a seat and then throw his scarf around his neck and laugh at the comedy that just took place. I wonder if he thought about my going to watch him sing at Abyssinian Baptist Church every concert as he belted out songs that filled his heart and spirit with the peace he longed for. I wonder if he thought about all the laughs we'd have sometimes, prank calling random people just to see who'd break up first. I wonder if he knew just how much I loved and respected him. The bell has rang yet again, and I suppose now class is really dismissed. You know, if someone asks me that question again about how did you know Mr. Mott, I know now the answer that I suppose was always in my heart. He was my dad in every sense of the word, the finest example of manhood I ever knew. May God bless you all forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is Miss Barbara Esmila, a former colleague at Murray Bergstrom High School. Thank you. That was a beautiful, beautiful tribute.
Barbara, first I'd like to thank you and the team at Stuyvesant for allowing me to say a few words. I actually wrote my words because I knew that if I just allowed myself to speak, I might be here a little too long. But I do want to say that in listening to his family and Jahi, when he told you to sit down, you made me laugh because that's exactly how he was. Mr. Mott and I worked together at Bergstrom for many years. He was the coordinator of student activities and I was the senior advisor. We were more than colleagues, we were friends. I have nothing but the fondest of memories of our time together at Bergstrom. We were in contact while he was at Stuyvesant and JKO and while I became the principal of Murray Bergstrom High School. Although time came between us when we were no longer teaching at Bergstrom, when we would see each other, it was as if time stood still. I remember a day, probably closer to when I was retiring, and out of the blue, he decided to come visit me. And true to Phil Mott's style, he came in with that gregarious laughter, and all we could do was sit there and laugh. And he said, "How the hell did you become principal when you never wanted that type of job?" And we sat there and we laughed and we laughed. And I just looked at him and I said, "Who knows? It was Bergstrom. I grew up in this school." So what he didn't realize is that he left not only a mark on his students, but he left a mark on his colleagues as well. Most importantly, I speak for the thousands of students from Bergstrom who Mr. Mott impacted on a daily basis. I sometimes wonder whether he knew how much he was loved and respected by his students. He was not only their teacher, he was their mentor, their father figure, their friend, the role model, and that male figurehead that young men knew they could go to no matter what the circumstance. In Phil Mott, there was a compassionate man whose love of family, his deep sense of spirituality, guided him in his daily life and helped him serve as a leader of young men and women. I know how deeply brokenhearted the graduates of Bertram felt when they heard of the passing of a man who was larger than life to all of them. So, my dear friend, no matter where you are, know that I am truly sorry that I never came to hear you sing. I am sorry that you canceled so many of our dinner plans. COVID came, and with that, the world seemed to stand still, and we never did sit down to that dinner. For that, I'm truly sorry. Thank you for your friendship, for always making me laugh, and for being that last shoulder that I needed on those long days when I was senior advisor. May you sleep in peace, dear friend, and know you were loved and respected and will always be missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to introduce a wonderful student, Romeo Alexander. Hi, Romeo.
Hi. First, can you see the screen? You can see this photo. This is
Yes.
me reading a monologue from Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, in Mr. Mott's freshman English class. I also had him for theater junior year. And Mr. Mott meant so much to me. He was more than just a teacher. He believed in me before I believed in myself. He would always say, "Romeo, you're a star." I just didn't know it yet. And he organized so many activities, especially for the Black Students Association. There was one very memorable trip where he took us to Princeton, and he introduced all of us to Cornell West. And that was just so formative for me. And it was the moment I decided I wanted to go to a very good college and go to an Ivy League school. But then even beyond that, I felt so nerdy and geeky coming into Stuyvesant, which is a very technical math and science school. And the last thing I thought that I needed or wanted was theater or drama. But Mr. Mott really opened my eyes and made me realize, lived to my namesake of Romeo. And he applied so much rigor, but also love to the craft of theater. And I frequently think about him too. Like, I always think about him every time I have to make a public speech, get on stage, just in the day-to-day. He taught me that all the world's a stage, and we're always performing in a way. But at the same time, you have to be true to yourself. If you're true to yourself, you're false to no one, to quote some more Shakespeare. I miss him so much, and I wish he were still here. There's so much I want to share with him. Yeah, I miss Mr. Mott. And that's all I have to say. But I'm going to continue looking to see if there are more photographs like this, because this is really cool. I think he had just started his locks, and I actually copied him and grew locks myself over the next 4 years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Romeo. Thank you. Next up is another one of my former students, Shariah Rahman. Shariah, hi, welcome.
Hello, Ms. Garbo, everybody. I just take this time to share my most.
We seem to be having some audio problems. Does everyone hear him? We're having some audio problems. Shariah.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. I take this time to share my most distinct memory with Mr. Philip Osborne Mott, if that's all right. We used to share lunch a lot during my time at Stuyvesant High School, and the one lunch that stood out to me the most with him was another tragedy. It was on the December of the Sandy Hook school shooting, where Mr. Mott silently wept for all those children during the lunch we shared. It really stuck out to me. What happened afterwards was he asked God to forgive him. The gravity of the event had momentarily shook his faith. Mr. Mott was a God-fearing man, and he held all life sacred. He was also the first adult to encourage me. As we could see from this service, I wasn't the only student that had this type of relationship with him. He saw me not for who I could be, but for who I was always going to be, and he never forgot to spare a moment to remind me so. I'm glad my life was touched by Mr. Mott. I hope we can honor not just his memory, but the vision he had for all of us. He'll be greatly missed, not just by myself, but by everybody here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Next, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Banfield, a teacher at Stuyvesant.
Hi, good evening, everyone. You know, hearing all of your stories, it made me remember my connection to Mr. Mott just briefly. We both had families that came from Alabama, so we connected that way, and especially over really good food. I can still see him in Boulevard Bistro in Harlem, flirting with the waitress for one more biscuit. But nevertheless, while we would sit and eat this really good food, he would discuss some of his challenges with teaching. And teaching in and of itself is challenging, but one good thing about Mr. Mott that he will remind me of is to lean in on our spirituality. One thing that he did tell me was that he was really glad that he joined the choir and that it was a definite bright spot in his day. So in honor of Philip's experience with the choir, veteran teacher Holly Hall, who is also the choir creator, is going to sing her rendition of the African-American spiritual Swing Low, Sweet Chariot by Wallace Willis.
Sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home, a band of angels are coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, tell all my friends I'm a coming too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, come in for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Bravo, Holly Hall. Really, a world-class singer. Let's give her a hand, even if we can't give a hand over Zoom, whatever. Let's give her a hand. A beautiful, beautiful voice. Thank you. Okay, let's take a minute. And next up is Pat Nelio. Go ahead, Pat. Hi, Pat. Is Pat here?
He is, but he was on mute. He's still
Yeah.
mute.
Okay.
I'm here, but I can see everyone, but you can't see me. From the beginning, I have not been recognized. I've been from 4:45. Anyway. Can you see me?
No, we can only hear you.
Okay, well, I can say what I'm going to say then, all right?
Okay, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. First of all, thank you very much, Holly. It was beautiful and very inspirational. And Philip was an inspirational contributor to the Stuyvesant community. I worked with him on many projects involved with the Black Students League, Aspida, Unity, and the Mentor Leadership Program. One of the most poignant memories I have is his production of A Raisin in the Sun. I was working in a prep program called Math and Science Institute, and we had several hundred people, and we were reading A Raisin in the Sun. I remembered that he had a dress rehearsal. He was cooperative in changing the time a little bit, and he enabled about 500 or 600 students in this program to see it. They were delighted. They gave the production a standing ovation. And one of the most beautiful things is he used people that were in this program. In particular, Ian was in the role of Walter. And I'll never forget that production, as well as many, many other excellent things that he did. Philip was not only a colleague, but he was also a friend. And we shared many conversations in and out of Stuyvesant. I participated in all of his special Thanksgiving Day activities and so on and so forth. It's a shame that he was beleaguered and underappreciated by his chairman, but at the same time, he was so appreciated by faculty and his students, and with love and admiration, and he gave 110% of himself all the time. Philip, we will miss you. Every day we think about you and all the wonderful things that you did. May you rest in peace and know that we love you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Well, our pleasure. The pleasure is ours. And next, Mr. Milton Diaz. Hi, Milton. Hi, Milton. Oh. We're not hearing you. Are you unmuted?
Yes, to unmute.
Oh,
No, you see me now, but not, okay, well, anyway.
all right. Now we see you, Pat. Milton,
Okay.
I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes. Yes, we got you. Yes.
Okay, great. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Okay, great. So it seems like I have to hold my mobile so that we can continue this here. Can you, so I'm okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Philip was my next door neighbor on the 10th floor. He had a great sense of humor. He would always remind me that we were in what had been designated as the psych ward. He would say the 10th floor was the mental ward of Stuyvesant High School. Well, I really loved being on the 10th floor, away from what I felt were the real crazies downstairs. But anyway, now I live in Africa. And the week Philip passed away, a hummingbird appeared in my garden here in Morocco. The hummingbird flew to my ear and spoke. This is what Philip would always call me, Dr. Diaz. So he said, Dr. Diaz, do you recognize me? Yes, of course I do. It's the voice of Philip Mott. Dr. Diaz, I'm on a tour, a peace tour. I came to say hello. I've always wanted to visit you in Africa. Are you okay, Philip? I've never been better, Dr. Diaz. Look, I can fly. I no longer feel the heaviness of institutional life. I'm free. Was life so sad for you, Philip? Yes, you know that. But I remember you being loved by your students and your colleagues. Dr. Diaz, let's not kid ourselves. Yes, Philip, I understand, with a few exceptions. Dr. Diaz, I would like to dedicate this poem to my wonderful colleagues, my beloved students, and to the 8 African-American children who will join the Stuyvesant community in the fall. Philip whispered in my ear, you may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise, up from a past that's rooted in pain. I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Goodbye, Dr. Diaz. Philip rose like a whirling dervish, spinning in the air, transforming himself into an eagle, soaring high in the sheltering blue sky, heading south. Fly, Philip, fly. You are now free. Rest in peace, dear soul. Amen.
Let's give Milton a hand, and let's give everyone a hand who's so far. We've heard so many beautiful, heartwarming tributes. Thank you. That was beautiful, Milton. Thank you.
Barbara.
Thank you. Let's give everyone a hand for such beautiful, poignant speeches, and it's really been wonderful. It's been great to be here. Okay, and next up is Cyto Rodriguez-Tabone, former assistant principal at Stuyvesant.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm a former APO at Sty. And even though I was only there 3 years, I got to know many of you, and I'm so happy to see you here honoring Mr. Mott. I can tell you that during the time that I spent there at Sty, I worked with so many great teachers, all who were devoted to students and to teaching and to the mission of uplifting and inspiring all the students. But but none were more notable or more passionate in their love of the arts than Mr. Philip Osborne Mott. If there was ever a more beloved English teacher, I haven't met them yet. Philip filled the room with his personality. For me, he was always Mr. Mott. He addressed me with formality and I always returned the favor. About Mr. Mott, he always talked about his mom. He will always ask me about my son and was quick to share lessons learned from his mom. As a mother myself, this endeared him to me. He loved Shakespeare and did all he could to impart that lifelong love to all of his students. He loved his black box theater on the 10th floor. He always spoke well about that room on the 10th floor. I recall fondly how he would host a small dinner for his students the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Every year he did it without fail. This was a ritual of gratitude and thanksgiving and generosity that speaks volumes about Mr. Mott's character and his love for life and imparting important messages to his students by his example. In memory of Mr. Mott, great love for Shakespeare, I know he would appreciate that I chose to close with this missive from Hamlet. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. I will always love you. You will always hold a very special place in my heart. And thank you for teaching me everything that you taught me. And thank you everyone for allowing me to have a few minutes to just express that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And really, I mean, it's the audience that has made this event so beautiful tonight. Thank you very much. Next up, I'd like to introduce our esteemed social studies teacher, Matt Palazzo.
It's an honor to be asked to speak to you here, and I'm sorry that it's such a sad occasion. I met Philip Mott 20 years ago. I had come to Stuyvesant in 2000, and he came a couple of years after me. In those days, I was the coordinator of student activities back then, and I was running Sing. It was one of my first Sings I'd ever run, and it was a crazy, amazing experience. And Mr. Mott was a faculty advisor, and I didn't really know him that well yet at that time. But he knew who I was, and one day I was wandering around, watching the events, hoping that nobody would get hurt, tumbling and doing athletic dance maneuvers. And he walked over to me with a face completely serious as death. And in those days, his hair kind of went up, and he kind of walked over to me, and he said, he caught my eye, and he said, "Palazzo." I thought, oh my God, what's going on? And he walked up to me, and he put his hand on my arm, and he said, "These children," and then he just started laughing, and he got that smile on his face, and he said, "They are too much," and then I knew what kind of a person he was, just the best friend to the students, and every year, he always was there. And every time he would see me in the hallway, he would always look at me, and he would always pretend to be offended by something, and he would always say "Palazzo," but always the friendly hand on the shoulder, and he would always ask, "How are you doing? How's life?" Mr. Mott had an infectious joy and an incredible joie de vivre that is hard to explain if you haven't met him. I hope you'll forgive me if I tell a brief anecdote. I want to share the screen with you guys here. So this is a picture of the 10th floor, not the 10th floor, the 11th floor of Stuyvesant. I was able to get up there once. A maintenance guy let me up, and I took pictures. And this is some of the unusual equipment that I saw along the way. The mysterious things up there that make the school function. Don't ask me what these machines do, because I don't know. I took advantage, of course, to take pictures of views I'd never seen before. This kind of an amazing, enchanted world that like nobody at Stuyvesant knew about, but I had this one glimpse into it. And I'm walking along, seeing all this stuff, and all the machines, the views, everything else like that. And then what do I see there on the roof? But but Philip Mott, grading papers, living his best life in an Adirondack chair. And I called over to him right after I took this paper. I said, Mr. Mott. And he looked at me, he said, Palazzo, you found me. And then he gave that laugh that, you know, that we all know and that we all love. You know, he was just an original, a true original. And, you know, all I can say is he may be gone, and it hurts that he's gone, that I'm never gonna see his face again. But he's not gone, because, you know, he'll always live in our memories. We'll always have those moments with him. Nobody can ever take that time that we spent with him away from us. He'll always live in my heart, and he'll always live in all of our hearts. And I wish I could just see his face one more time, but I know that I can always see his face in my mind. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out here to celebrate his life. I'm sorry that we had to do it over a screen. You know, I'm sorry that, you know, we couldn't hug one another in the way that he would have loved. But he belonged to himself, but he belongs to all of us, and he belongs to the world now. So thank you guys for letting me speak. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That was beautiful, Matt. Thank you very much. Next up is a former teacher, and I have to say, best union rep of all time, Mr. Bernard Feigenbaum, best union rep. Hi, Bernard.
Hi, thank you. And I'm not iPad 4, but I couldn't get my name up there. So that's me. Okay. Even though Philip and I taught at Stuyvesant for many, many, many years, I didn't even know exactly how many. I thought it was about 20, but then I got corrected by Matt, who, using maths, it ended up being 17 years, because he was up in the high level floors. I was on the 4th floor. We were in different departments. So we really didn't get a chance to even see each other, know each other, or anything until my last 2 years, or our last 2 years at Stuyvesant, in which I got to spend a lot of time with him. In those years, I learned a lot about Philip and his impact, his positive impact on his students. Philip always gave a piece of himself in the classroom, doing whatever he felt was necessary to get his students motivated to learn the material at a high level. What I learned about teaching at Stuyvesant, and what Philip already knew, is how Stuyvesant students blossomed when given the opportunity to learn from non-traditional teachers and with non-traditional teaching methods. Philip knew that students at Stuyvesant wanted more than a teacher following some Board of Ed curriculum, where those in charge think students learn by memorization and prove this knowledge by repeating what they memorize on a standardized test. Philip knew real knowledge was more than that, and he taught by using all his skills, his knowledge and abilities in such a way so that his students saw the bigger picture and then up with a very high knowledge of the material. This is why his students love him, for the way he taught them, treated them, and cared for them. He positively impacted not just the students over the decades, but his colleagues and those who came in contact with him. And this is illustrated by all of us doing this Zoom conference, that we all have a deep feeling for him. We all cared about him and who he was, and just everything about him. I feel honored and appreciative that I had the chance to spend some time with him during our last 2 years at Stuyvesant. That's it. God rest his soul.
Thank you. My apologies. I seem to have skipped one speaker, Mr. Ronald Hobson. So we'd like to ask you to please speak now.
Well, good evening. You know, Philip was a very good friend of mine. I met Philip back in the 1980s through Yolanda and Bernice King. We shared a lot of stories, and I'm trying to think of one, you know, story in particular. But before I say that, Philip was a very special person who touched a lot of people, and these were not only the students and not only the faculty, but we would go places, and I mean, we would be in rooms with members of Congress and presidents and notable celebrities, but Philip wasn't fazed by that. He actually spoke to folks that were the people at the coat rack, the hotel workers, and he would actually just really get their attention and just have conversations with those folks and I mean really capture their attention, and that's the kind of person he was. And he was a very funny guy. No joke. He would play jokes on people. And I had to tell you this quick story about how we took a road trip. And the whole purpose of the road trip was to go drive to Atlanta to attend Bernice King's 50th birthday. No, 50th birthday. No, it was, well, attend one of her birthday parties. And I completely forgot that, Phil, became a New Yorker. And he didn't drive. And so Phil got behind the wheel. And after about 20 minutes, I said, Phil, when was the last time you drove a car? Because here we are driving down I-85, and Phil is actually he's crossed over the lane and driving in the center. So you can imagine what that was like for us. But, to him, he was doing perfectly fine. And as you saw one of the pictures earlier, we actually stopped off in Charlotte, and he went to ended up somehow at a BMW dealership, and we were looking at this $85,000 car, and Phil was asking the guy, hey, I'd like to take this car for a spin. And so at some point we were like, Phil, we got to go. We got to get on the road. But I'm going to wrap this up by saying that once we got to Atlanta, Phil came to my cousin's house. And my cousin, she's a very serious person who doesn't socialize a lot and who doesn't laugh a lot. But by the time, when she met Phil, she was laughing and laughing so hard that we were in her house for 2 hours, and we were 2 hours late for Bernice's birthday party because Phil was having such a good time. And once again, he was really touching the life of someone. And my cousin and Phil became pen pals as a result of that. And that was about 2 years ago. And so, Phil had a great spirit. He's going to be greatly missed. He's going to be certainly missed in King Center circles. And to me, right now, it's still very hard to process that Phil is no longer with us, and that and I'm going to miss all of the laughs and the fun that we had together. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Hobson. We're so sorry we for some reason, but we wanted to play the photos that you have provided. We played them at the very beginning, but here they are again. These are absolutely beautiful, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
To give you personalized assistance from
That's the road trip I was talking about.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hobson. These are beautiful.
Thank you.
I would like to say a few words about Mr. Mott and him singing in the chorus with us. He sang with us for a good number of years, and our choral director, Ms. Hall, and I, we became really good friends with Mr. Mott. And when one day we were speaking with him, we learned that he loved to sing and he had been in the choruses. So we asked him to see if he wants to come and sing with us, especially that he was a tenor. And the chorus people understand. And he did. He came and he sang and he absolutely loved it, and we loved him. He would light up the chorus room when he came to rehearsals. He was usually smiling and was very cheerful. He loved to sing and he loved the students. He always joked, was very insightful, and was a true gentleman. He went with us on trips to the opera and to perform. We would like to play for you another excerpt from the Mozart Requiem. This is in 2016 at Stuyvesant, and Mr. Mott sang with us. He was in the tenor section, and if you watch, there's going to be footage, you'll see him. He's kind of towards in the center, towards the back. He's singing with the tenors. So here is a little bit of that excerpt.
Beautiful. Next up, another esteemed Stuyvesant teacher, Lisa Jane Schumann.
Wow, now I really have a lump in my throat coming after that performance. I also wrote some things down because I don't think I could get through it extemporaneously without crying. I may cry anyway. Like all of you, I am so sorry to be here under these circumstances. But it is really unbelievable to see people from such a long time ago. And I think it is such a testament to Philip and the impression he's made on all of us. His passing was such a surprise to me. And I hadn't talked to him. Obviously, COVID hit for a while, and I'm sorry about that. But something ironic happened on the day that I got a text from a colleague that he had passed. And that was my piano teacher. I just started piano, said to me, "Why don't you try playing Summertime?" And it's a song I love to sing. And it's a song, obviously, given the performance today, that people associate with Philip because of its complexities. And I worked with Philip for such a long time, and we were friends and colleagues. How could you not befriend Philip? That everyone talks about his vivacious smile and his sort of stare down that he would give me, always done jokingly and affectionately, always commenting on something about what I was wearing, not always as a compliment, actually. One of my fondest memories of him and how we bonded was a talent show that Philip facilitated. Many years ago, anything that would get the kids outside their comfort zone and engaging students in something artistic, that would be Philip. And I worked with him on this talent show, and after some coaxing from him and the students, I sang him my bluesy version of Summertime. And I'll never forget it, after which he said to me, with the finger, "Miss Schumann, it's been a long time since someone has serenaded me." And he made me feel good, and he made me feel confident. And I think he did that with the students. And we just always laughed that was really our bonding moment. And I look back at it now, and I'm so happy I had that little event with him, that experience with him. And I'm happy that I was able to perform Mozart's Requiem with him. That was so touching, watching those scenes of him. I thank you, Miss Shamazov and Miss Hall, for generously allowing teachers to be a part of that. And I was there, and it was so apparent from the rehearsals that the students just being next to him, singing near him, the comfort they brought him, the comfort he brought them. They were just so thrilled to have him doing that with him. Me, I could be invisible. Ms. Zhang was in it, and we sort of blended in, but not Philip. That was never the case with Philip. He could never blend in. And the students' admiration for him was just so apparent. I didn't want to perform in Carnegie Hall. I just wanted to learn the Requiem. But Philip was having none of that. "No, Miss Schumann, you get right here and you're performing with us, Miss Schumann." No, none of that, Miss Schumann. He was something, an unconventional guy at a conventional school, a lover of arts, creative expression. I think he exposed students to something so far beyond academia, and something that would foster in them a sense of confidence and individualism and approval for individualism, that just by being him, just by modeling it. So when I heard of his untimely passing, I couldn't make sense of it. How could such a force not be with us anymore? And then I thought, and I started to think of our memories, and I started to think of his love of arts and his love of singing. And look how many people have spoken about that. And I kind of found some answer and some consolation to this puzzle that we ask ourselves when people die in an untimely way and we don't understand it. And then I think for me, I think Philip's life here embodied song. I think Philip was a song. I think he was a symphonic piece. with all the different musical expressions that there could be. I think that his life was a musical metaphor. And then the consolation to me is the one thing we know about song and music is that it never dies, because someplace, somewhere, someone is performing it, or someone is singing it, or someone is humming it just because it makes them feel good. And I think that people, especially his students and me now, will be singing Philip's song for a very, very long time. And that's a hell of a legacy. So Philip, wherever you are, I hope you are resting in peace, or you are singing loudly. And I would venture a guess you're probably doing the latter. I'm so happy I met you. Rest in peace, my dear colleague.
Lisa,
Thank
that
you.
was really beautiful. Beautiful, Lisa.
Thank you.
Perhaps you can say that perhaps Philip was like an angel here on earth, and he was an angel who was meant to teach us certain things. Maybe that was his role here. Sorry, I don't want to get upset. Next, I'd like to introduce another esteemed colleague and teacher at Stuyvesant High School, James Kokoris.
Now can you hear? Okay, great. Hi. The first day I met Philip at Stuyvesant, I came to Stuyvesant in 2004, was interesting because it was the second day of the term and we were giving the AMC exam, which is a math exam. And Philip made it very clear to me that he was very unhappy proctoring the exam. That was the first time. The second time I met Philip, and that's when we became friends. It was on the second floor at Stuyvesant. I walked in, and I hear from across the room, Kokoris. There's Philip. He's coming to me. He's walking towards me. And he said, Kokoris, what do you teach? I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, I don't know, math. And then he gave me, which I'm sure all of you know, that exasperated Philip Mott eye roll. You know that eye roll. And he sort of looked away and he shook his head. He said, no, what do you teach? And then I sort of understood what he was talking about. And we started talking. And he wanted to get to know me. And it was in that moment that I realized that he was a genuine person. And it's so very rare in this world. I wish it weren't the case, but he was a genuine person who wanted to get to know me and what my motivations were. And there we were on the second floor at Stuyvesant, talking about why we were each teaching. Before we know it, we were both talking about Baltimore. I don't know if you knew, he actually taught in Baltimore for a while, and I'm from Baltimore. He talked about his mother and how important his mother was to him and how important my mother was to me. And we talked about Shakespeare and the arts and theater. And before we know it, I missed my first period class. And in that moment, a friendship was forged. And in that moment, I had that experience that so many of us here had, that I met someone truly special. So as the sort of years went on at Stuyvesant, I would find myself on my off periods going up to the 10th floor, which is where he had his class, and walk into the room. And whether he was there or not, or whether there was a class in there or not, the lights were usually off except for the lamp on his desk. And then there was the chess set that was sitting on his desk. Sometimes the piece was moved, sometimes it wasn't. And maybe the class was in session and maybe it wasn't. And I would sit in the back and I would just watch everything unfold. His class, how he conducted his class, how the students were, whether they were up on the stage. And you looked around and you couldn't help but become calm. And it's like you left Stuyvesant and you went to this magical place that was free of stress, that was a celebration of the students. He had like the posters of whatever the new art of the new performances, the past performance. It was a celebration of the kids. It was a celebration of the arts. And you just felt happy. And that's what he every day. That's why, I mean, I'm sure all of us, we sought him out because he made us happy. Even on days that we had no business being happy, he could evoke a smile. He knew how to do it. And I miss my friend. I miss what he brought to Stuyvesant. I miss what he brought to the students. He was a celebration of everything. And people ask me, like, would I want my daughter Cleo to go to Stuyvesant? And it was Philip Mott that would make me say yes. The students at Stuyvesant and Philip, if she could meet Philip Mott, and she actually did it at a parents' dinner, and she's very lucky for that. He was special, and sometimes, at least for me, I feel like I was lucky, and I cherished my friendship with him, and I miss him. So thank you for this opportunity to say something.
Thank you very much. And clearly, it's the audience that has made this event so special today. I thank you all so much for such beautiful words. Next up, Angel Cologne, sport counselor at Stuyvesant. Go ahead, Angel.
Okay, so first, again, thank you, Sister Barbara. Thank you, Sister Liliya, Sister Dina, and for everyone, again, putting this together. Again, hearing the narratives, the stories, the personal experiences. I mean, I'm floored. Okay, I'm trying to, like I said, really process my own personal emotions, how I want to really do justice to Brother Phil. And I had to run this. Originally, I had about a 5-minute, 10-minute, but then Sister Barbara told me that I had to keep it within 2 minutes, at least, 2 minutes, because we had a long program. So I hope that what I'm about to share, again, brings some light and some joy. So here we go. This is, again, my one-to-one with Mr. Mott, with Brother Phil. Cologne, where are you, Cologne? Don't you run away from me, Cologne. I can catch you. I can outrun you. Don't you know when you are in the presence of greatness? These were just, again, some of Brother Philip's greatest hits, if you really got to know him. He always had something. He brought the drama, he brought the laughs, he brought that energy, that empathy, that humanity. And I mean, you're hearing the stories. You're hearing the stories that right now, as we're doing this tribute, there is so much of a library, of a biography to really, really share in the life of one Philip Mott. And, it's hard to, to know that he's no longer here. And just really just kind of going through all this, and hearing it. I mean, it's definitely helping with, the healing and just again, the memories that I think my time with him was, about 15, 16 years, and near the end of his departure, and again, not really knowing, the way he left, and then just finding about everything that happened as he passed. But, again, in hearing everyone's personal story, and really trying to really celebrate, his life, his legacy, from staff, past to present, to obviously of students, past to present, alumni, Shariah. Again, it was great seeing you and hearing your shout out to Mr. Mott, Romeo, and and again, this is a lot of things. And again, I just really want to thank, I guess where I want to really shift is to really thank Phil for a lot of the great memories, a lot of things that he did. I mean, from the mentor leadership, the early mentor leadership. And you know what? I wouldn't do Philip justice if I did not mention, the late, great Eleanor Archie, the assistant principal of guidance, who I hope someday will also get her recognition and her tribute. As there's a lot of things that's also in the works. But again, seeing Milton Diaz, seeing Patrick Neilio, again, the mention of Dr. Jan McCrae, and again, a lot of the activism, the civil rights, stories that we used to always hear during Black History Month, especially Black History Month at Stuyvesant High School. Or with Philip Mott, it was not just Black history. He was part of the Muslim Student Association and coming to their meetings, or trying to, eventually attend one of the myths that the students would have every year, coming to the Hispanic heritage, Aspida. I mean, I could go on, Spectrum. I mean, Phil was all about diversity, was all about, challenging the system, trying to make things right, to make inclusion, a presence at Stuyvesant High School, to really build on the diversities that we have in our school. And I can go on, but, again, I just want to thank, Philip Mott, for being who he is, as one of the presenters mentioned, larger than life, again, infectious and everything that, the people that he touched, even hearing young brother Yahi, and his story and the impact he had on his life. So again, this is just, it's emotional. It's emotion with love, and I think that's the best way to, continue to honor Phil, is to honor all these treasure memories, his legacy. Again, that room 1025, I hope that there's something in his name by that room, the Shakespeare. And I mean, I don't know what else that, that I'm probably missing. I'll miss, our Boston markets when we was together on 23rd Street, and then, him taking that SBS 23 crosstown to, I guess, the east side where he lived. But yeah, I thank you, Brother Philip. And, I'll definitely, always have you in my prayers, along with the family, and to everyone that, obviously I'll probably have these ongoing conversations and share these memories in our coming years at Stuyvesant High School. And again, apologies, just for the emotions that I was trying to hold it in, but I just couldn't. And yeah, rest in power. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angel. Angel, I think that Philip would say, don't cry for me. Just live your best life. Live your best life and do what you have to do. I think that's what he would say. Don't cry. But okay, thank you. And so next, I would like to introduce, I'm just going to ask you please to mute if it's possible. I'd like to introduce Martin Luther King III. Thank you very much for coming. It's an honor, Mr. King. Thank you.
Serious allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis. Get help right away if you have rash.
We can't hear you. Are you muted, Mr. King?
Thank you very much, Barbara. I was muted. Thank you. Let me first say to you and to all of those who are responsible for this program today, we thank you as a family. Philip and I were cousins, as other cousins have spoken this evening, but also friends. And Philip was my sister Yolanda's probably best friend. They lived together for a number of years in New York City. And it has been established, every one of us who knew Philip Osborne Mott knew who he was. He was beyond humorous. He was, as has been stated, he could come into a room and capture the imagination of everyone, or he could come in a room and not even be noticed. So he had an unusual cadence and many characteristics. I believe that I remember in my college years, back in the late 70s, I believe Yolanda moved to New York in the early 80s. And somewhere around there, I used to come to New York and hang out with her and Philip. And we hung out in the village. We'd go to many of the clubs where amazing jazz performing artists were just vibing, and it was an amazing experience. Philip and I became close over the years because he was first, of course, close to Yolanda, but we were family, but we were friends. Many of the times that I came to New York, I would call Philip. And after Yolanda transitioned in 2007, in 2008, my wife and I had a daughter, Yolanda Renee. My sister was Yolanda Denise. And Philip took a special liking to Yolanda Renee. And she took a special liking to him. And in fact, one of the last times we were in New York together with Philip, they were in the hotel playing chess. But they also always had these very interesting conversations and very in-depth conversations. Yolanda, in her own right, is sort of an activist, although she's just 13. Well, she'll be 13 years old this month. I remember a few years back, maybe when she was about 7, one of her dear friends had accompanied us to New York. And Philip spent a lot of time with Yolanda, then Yolanda Renee, our daughter, and her little friend, and they loved Philip. Everyone who came in contact with him loved him, I believe, because, he exuded love. He had a love for his family, obviously, his mom, his family. He had a love for his students. My God, he loved you guys, those of you who interacted with him. He had a love for his church, for his community, and he had a love of God. And every day, I'm sure he personified that throughout his life. A lot has been said, and I probably could share some funny stories. We also, doing family reunions, he loved to be engaged during the family reunion times and was involved in organizing, bringing family together. Yolanda had a theater company that Philip was involved with. And I think he was involved in every aspect, whether it was providing the sound, or whether it was physically performing in public, or whether it was doing the lights. It was like the whole shebang. He did everything. And that theater company traveled many places in the States. And I know during the summers, whenever Yolanda would travel anywhere in the world, almost most of those trips, Philip accompanied her with others. And so, while he is no longer in our presence directly, his spirit will be with us forever, as many have said today. And it sort of reminds me of a story my grandfather used to tell. My grandfather on my father's side, Martin Luther King Sr., who was a pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, along with his son, my father, Martin Luther King Jr., co-pastor. And Granddaddy told this story. He said there was an old doctor who actually really was not that old, as I remember it. He was maybe mid-age, in his 60s. And the doctor was one of the few doctors in this village that many, many years ago existed. So people would come from miles and miles to visit the doctor. And so on this one particular day, people assembled and they would line up, and sometimes they would circle the office, which was like a house of the doctor. And on this particular day, there were probably 500 people in line. and an old lady came up to the back of the line. And she was very frail, but she needed to get to see the doctor as quickly as possible. And so when she first arrived, she came to the back of the line and she asked the question, "Where's the doctor?" Nobody much paid her any attention. Number one, they probably couldn't hear her. But she moved on up a little further and she raised her voice a bit saying, "Where's the doctor?" And then people sort of looked at her, but that didn't stop her. She kept going and finally she arrived at the front of the line. And at this point she yelled out, "Where is the doctor?" And someone stopped and said, "Lady, read the sign on the door." So on the door, there was a sign that said, "Still in business, just moved upstairs." So that's Philip Mott. He's still in business, just moved upstairs.
Thank you very much. He's still in business. Let's give him a hand, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next I'm turning it over to Liliya as we have a little music.
In 2016, the chorus performed the Mozart's Requiem at Carnegie Hall with Distinguished Concerts International, New York, under the baton of an esteemed maestro, Vance George. We will close today's ceremony with an excerpt from that performance, the beautiful Lacrimosa movement. You will see Mr. Mott singing with his students, friends, and colleagues on the grand stage of Carnegie Hall. We will never forget this beautiful performance. And Mr. Mott is going to be standing approximately in the center, like in front of the conductor, but high up, pre-last row. Thank you so much.
That was very beautiful. Let's give that a hand again. Thank you very much. Although this ends the formal segment of this program, we would like to stay for a while. We'd like to welcome anyone who'd like to say a few words. We do have someone right now, Stephen Shanab. He would like to say a few words. If anyone else would like to, please tell me in the chat and we'll give you the time. Thank you very much. Please feel free to stay if you can. If not, I thank you so much for coming. It is really the audience and the speakers that has made this program so beautiful. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Philip, may you rest in peace, Philip. And we are watching you, and I know that you are watching us. Thank you very much. Please stay around if you like. And Stephen Shanab, you're up.
Thank you, everyone. And this has been beautiful so far. It's nice to see some of my former teachers, actually. After so long. I'm graduated in 2006 from Stuyvesant. And my little story is I was always a math and science person. So anything that involved the English literature and dissecting books was probably the last thing I ever wanted to do in high school. But having Mr. Mott really changed how I looked at things, whether it be in books, whether it be in life. Someone said he was an unconventional teacher at an unconventional school with unconventional students. And that honestly couldn't be more true. So I asked him to write me my letter of recommendation for college. And he was one of the most popular, as we could see. And he said, "Stephen, how about you write the letter and I'll just sign it?" And I said, okay. I never had a job at that point, so I didn't even know what a letter of recommendation would entail. And so I just tried to put myself on a pedestal, but not so high up there. And I said, okay, Mr. Mott, here's the paper. And he took his red pen and he read the entire thing and every word. Red X, red X, red X. Started rewriting sentences, moved things around. He just looked at me with that side eye that we all know very well, with a smirk on his face. And he said, "This will be ready in 2 days." And he said, "I would never write anything like this." And so he wrote me the letter that I got to read actually a year later. And it was one of the most heartwarming things I've ever had anyone write about me. And, you know, I ended up in medical education after med school before residency. And, you know, he made sure that he knew everything about his students, you know, made sure he knew what, you know, how they learned, what their interests were. And he was such an inspiration to me, even though I taught something completely different. He really, really changed my life. Really, really did. And as we've heard, he really, really changed all of yours. He is upstairs, still in business, and rest in power, Mr. Mott. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to introduce Holly Hall. Holly, you have made Stuyvesant Stuyvesant. Thank you, Holly.
Hi, I find this very difficult. I love Philip. He was my friend. He was my colleague. And as so many people have said, he taught me. He taught me a lot. I just want to say that it was a great privilege and an honor to conduct him. I want to say it was a great privilege and honor to be his friend, to go to dinner with him. I want to say that he made me laugh. He made me cry. He made me grateful to be alive. And he always gave 1,000%. And I meant what I sang to him. May he rest in the arms of God. And that talented, generous, kind, funny, loving, luminous man was taken too young from all of us. And I still can't even believe it. And what he gave to the children in that chorus and to us can't even be said. You just felt Philip's presence and beauty. Multifaceted, complex, brilliant man. And I just wanted to say that I hope he had a good chariot ride up to the Lord, because I believe he was welcomed by the angels. And I want to thank Liliya, and I want to thank Barbara and Harold and Joseph and everyone else who worked on this, and for all the people who were kind enough to share their experience and their thoughts and feelings about Philip. And when you make music with someone, you know their soul and you know their heart. And that is something that you can't talk about, put in a box, put a ribbon on. It's just one of the miracles of this life. And I want to just say thank you, Philip, for being part of mine and for letting me be part of yours. And blessings and condolences to his beloved family and his friends and his students. And may I ask that we all keep him in our hearts during his journey up in the chariot. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Someone is asking for your email in the chat. Holly.
Was that Shariah?
Yeah.
Was that Shariah? Hey, Shariah. Yes, please.
No, Holly.
Please, Barbara, just privately send it to him.
Sure.
Privately send it to him. I would be honored.
Oh,
Thank
sure,
you.
sure.
Thank you.
We're here for a visit, you know, and the visit is a gift. It's a gift that we have. It's a visit. That's the way it is. You know, we have this gift. We enjoy and live this beautiful gift. Every day is a valuable day, and it's a visit. And that's how you have to look at it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, right. And, you know, that's it. When God wants you, he stretches out his hands. Sometimes when people want to join God, they stretch out their hands.
Yes.
And that's the way it goes. And I'm not even a religious person, but yes, yeah. Okay, do I hear an amen? Yes.
Amen.
Thank you. So we have quite a number of people who would like to say a few impromptu words. We'll keep it going as long as you're happy with it. Next up is Perry. And after Perry, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more people. Please put in the chat if you would like to add to that. I'll put you on the list. Go ahead, Perry, please.
Sure, thank you. I'm off camera because I've been ugly crying and laughing so hard this whole time. And I just briefly wanted to say that maybe unlike a lot of students at Stuyvesant, I was always a humanities kid. Math and science were not my thing, and I had no business being at Stuyvesant High School, really. But Mr. Mott was the first teacher I had there who made me feel like I might be able to make it there and to thrive there. And to this day, my father, who met him once in passing at a school function, he still remembers that Mr. Mott complimented his leather jacket, and he never felt cooler. And he still thinks about that. You know, my father, who met him once, his impact was such that with an offhand comment in the hallway, my father still thinks about that so many years later. So thanks everyone for putting it together and for sharing all your memories.
Thank you very much, Perry. Next, we're going to Ian. And after Ian, Jarrell, get ready. Ian, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry, I thought it was someone before me. So I represent the throwback all the way back to Bertram with B and Mr. Mott. He was my English teacher way back when I graduated. I graduated in '90, and he was one of those teachers where he forced you to think beyond the basic answers that you would give. He forced you to go deeper and get to know yourself. He gave me the confidence and taught me how to be a good human. I would say Mr. Mott, you know, when I met him back in, I'd say '88, all the way through, you know, January, we had intermittent conversations about just life, and just, you know, he guided me through my life. And you know, one of the things that he told me way back when that stuck with me to this day was that you have to do the things today that you can thank yourself 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road for the things that you did today. And you know, I try to live by those words as much as I can, because he was so spot on with so many things that, you know, he's definitely going to be missed. He was the father that I didn't have. He was that person who would listen and hear everything you were saying, and really provided guidance to help you navigate this life. And so, you know, it's a bittersweet moment when you lose someone that's so pivotal in your life. But you know, without him, I would not be the person I am today, and without him, I would not have been prepared for this journey that is life. So I appreciate him, and I appreciate everything that he's done for me in getting me prepared and getting me ready, and making me smile, and making sure that I understand that it's not just about me, it's about giving back whenever you can, to make sure that everyone coming behind you has that same opportunity, or can learn from the things that I learned from him. So I truly appreciate him, and yeah, he will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. An angel on earth who was here to teach others how to be better people. That's how I would define him. All right. So he taught all of us how to be the best that we can be for us. Okay. And next up, please, is Jarrell, our esteemed guidance counselor at Stuyvesant. Hello, Jarrell.
Oh, hi, Barbara Garba. Thank you, everyone, for this amazing tribute. I don't even know where to begin. I wasn't really going to speak at all. I'm not necessarily the best at these things, but I would be remiss for this day to have come and gone and not have said something. So I joined Stuyvesant about 10 years ago in the guidance department. And I remember when I first got there, it was surreal because I've never been in such a building. And, you know, being one of very few people of color in the building, it was slightly, like it was shocking a little bit, right? So in the guidance department, we tend to have a little bit more people of color than in the other departments. So I felt a little bit at home in my department. And one of the counselors said, "Have you ever met Mr. Mott?" And I was just like, "No, who the hell is that? I don't know no Mott." So the person I was talking about is Undine Guthrie. And she walked me up to the 10th floor, and we were accompanied by Audra Paris. And from that moment forward, we kept going to the 10th floor. We absolutely loved going to see Mott. He would embrace us. We would be able to see his students perform Shakespeare when we, you know, Undine and Audra and Angel were there before me. So it was like a tradition with Mott to share the food every year. And once I, was privy to that, then next thing you know, I wanted to help with that. Angel was so pivotal in a lot of the things that Mott had to do in regards to sharing the food and doing things like that for the kids. So it would be Angel, Audra, Undine, myself, and we're helping Mott. Like, what do you need us to do? We were like his little pinions, like little minions. Whatever you need us to do, we'll do it, Mr. Mott. There's very few people in my life that I can say have inspired me. And Mott is someone that I usually have a lot to say. And Mott is someone that I never really had too much to say. I just would just sit and just listen.
And what do you think about
He had so much to offer and so much to give. And he was super inspirational. And someone mentioned earlier, how do you speak to someone who just knows everything? Like, he literally knew everything under the sun. And I would never forget Mott. He just down to the littlest things on how you should have your toilet paper, what side of the street you should walk on, everything under the sun. Mott allowed us to engage in conversation. And he would always make me feel like no matter where you are, no matter what you do, you are smart, you are beautiful, like you can do anything. And being one of the very few people of color, he used to always say, show them what you have. Make sure you can do everything that you can do. Show them what you can do. So I would always respect him, nothing but love for him. And that's it.
Thank you, Sherelle. Thank you. Philip really didn't care if you were going to Harvard, if you were a dropout, if you were going to community college. He just, he loved you for who you were. All right, and next up, please, is Michael. After Michael comes Andre, and then Abina, and this is last call. If you're interested in saying a few words, please let us know now. And go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't prepared to speak, but again, in hearing from everyone, it really touched me, and I hope maybe I could share something that'll give you some joy and some even more appreciation for Mr. Mott. I had his class twice. He wrote my college rec. We were, great friends in my opinion, and even during free periods, I would go hang out with him when I could. And I remember just so much laughter, and I have so many classic memories of funny things that he said to me, funny jokes that we shared. And I remember we would hang out in the library sometime, try to make each other laugh when everyone was, quiet and studying, and just trying to get him to crack up. And a few times I was able to succeed, and, his laughter would fill the room, and it would be so funny. I always viewed his class as fun. I didn't even think I was learning. I was just going to have fun and hang out with Mr. Mott. And only years later did I realize how much I learned from him about just how to be fearless, how to be authentic, how to show up, and all of these lessons that he imparted on me. And I didn't even realize at the time. It was just so effortless and natural for him. And I just wanted to share a quick story. One of the appropriate stories that I could share, which was when they moved him up to the 10th floor. I was in his class that year because he wasn't on the 10th floor back in the day. And I remember when they moved him up there, he was pissed. And he was like complaining to the class, and he said to the class, "Do you know why they moved me up here?" And I said, "Yeah, Mr. Mott, of course, because you're Black." And he just started laughing, and he said, "That's right. That's exactly right, Michael." And it was just, I always appreciated that he brought a playfulness to such a serious place. And he always encouraged me to share my sense of humor, even if the topic was maybe taboo or whatnot. And, I really appreciated that. And, thank you for everything, Mr. Mott. You taught me a lot of lessons. So rest well, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I mean, this is amazing. 2.5 hours later, we still have 55 people participating and wanting to say something. It's really wonderful.
Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, really beautiful. And next up is Andre. Then we'll go to Abina and then Undine. And again, this is last call.
Hi, thanks, Miss.
Yeah.
Thanks, Miss Garber. Not really sure what to say. There were a lot of things that came to mind. Mr. Mott, um, he was in the right profession for who he was. He was able to touch a lot of people, and he can have an impact greater than anyone can match. When I found out that he had passed, it kind of brought a heavy cloud over my weekend and the following days, and it's hard to tell anyone because my answer would be, "Oh, here's my high school English teacher." And as was said previously, that is not sufficient. That doesn't explain the impact that he had. I remember when he first came to Stuyvesant, he stopped me in the hallway before I ever had his class, before I knew who he was, or vice versa. And he wanted to know my story. And he made it very clear that I'd be seeing more of him. And he made it very clear that I had to walk differently and act differently because I looked different. And I was very blessed to have his class. He always inspired me. He never said anything other than what I needed to hear. And it was always a pleasure to run into him when I came back to visit. Hi, Mr. Cologne, how you doing? I did have the pleasure of bumping into him one time on 14th Street. He was in a Golden Crust, and I was stopping there with my now wife, and he pulled me aside and he gave me a look of, "You did well," but he has that Mr. Mott look of, "I don't think you deserve this." And I said, "You know what? You're probably right." But he gave me his approval, which I didn't really think much of it at the time. But looking back, it's one of those things that if you didn't spend a lot of time with him, you don't really understand the depth of every word he says and everything he does. And I'm glad that I was able to be part of that, be part of this now family. And Stuyvesant was certainly changed when he got there. And unfortunately, the rest of the students to come will not have him in their lives, but I'll keep him with me. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you. And next up, Abina.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Beautiful.
Hey, so I'm Abena. I also didn't really prepare anything to say. Hi, Ms. Guthrie. Hi, Mr. Diaz. Mr. Mott wasn't even my teacher. I didn't even have him for English. Like, I don't, it's funny that you say, Andre, hey, Andre, it's funny that you say, you know, I had the same probably reaction that you had when I found out that Mr. Mott had passed away, except I couldn't even say that, oh, he's my high school teacher. No, it's not an accurate description. So first of all, I thought this was a tremendously beautiful ceremony, and I'm so glad to have been a part of it and just to be able to witness it. It's so many people who loved him. It actually hurt me a little bit to hear that he was that he thought people didn't love him. How could that possibly be true? And I hate to think that he went through life that way. I hope, you know, in any case, my experience with Mott, I was involved in mentor leadership. I was involved in a Raisin in the Sun. It's fun. It's interesting. Like, there's so many with the Black Student League. There's so many different things that I was a part of at Stuyvesant that it seems like Mr. Mott had such a huge hand in organizing or influencing and whatever. And I didn't even know it at the time. The Princeton trip, I didn't know he did that. Us meeting Cornell West, like, that's fantastic. Most of my experiences with Mr. Mott happened after. I would see him a lot just in the neighborhood because I live in Manhattan. So I would run into him. He did live on in Cyto on 14th Street. He did sing at Abyssinian Baptist Church, which is just on my block. I live in Harlem, so I would run into him. And actually, the last time that I saw him was in the pizza shop around the corner from Abyssinian Baptist Church. And he was, it's funny that all of you say whenever you would run into him, I know I'm going on long, I'm sorry. It's funny that whenever you all would run into him, he would call you and tell you to come, because whenever he saw me, he'd roll his eyes and go, "Oh Lord, her again." In fact, that time when I ran into him in the pizza shop, he did exactly that. And then would just snatch me and pull me by my arm and say, "Okay, come girl." And then he talked to me a little bit about my purse, and then immediately got on the phone and called Miss McCrae. Is Miss McCrae still here? Called Miss McCrae and was telling her about the fact that he had just run into me again. And we had promised each other that we would have brunch together. It was cold at the time, and we promised each other that we would have brunch together when it warmed up. But then COVID hit, and now he's not with us. And so it's been hanging over me, and it's and then the last thing I want to say, and then I'll go. I don't know what the other thing that I'm hearing you all say is, "Oh, he was such an inspiration to you, and he always had something to say, something deep and wise and meaningful." And I don't know that was my interaction with Mr. Mott. I think he was just sort of, especially in an environment like Stuyvesant, where there weren't very many of us that were around, I think he was just home. I think he just provided a sense of cultural familiarity and that uncle who was always going to get you right and make sure you weren't doing anything wild and look out for you. Even after, I'm class of 2005, so even well after, obviously, high school was over. And I think that's what he was for me. I think he just provided a sense of home and safety and comfort. And I will miss him tremendously. I'll miss him on Juneteenth. I'll miss him in church. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you. And I say your name, Abena. How do you say your name?
Abena.
Abena. Abena. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said, no, my name is Abena, but nobody used to call me that. They would call me Tuesday. So,
okay.
Which is, okay, now see Miss Guthrie, she got it now. Okay.
You will carry him in
I
your
know
heart.
who you are. Excuse me. I know both names.
Wait a minute, Undine. I have to introduce you. Abena, you will carry him in your heart. Undine, I'd like to introduce my very close friend and esteemed guidance counselor at Stuyvesant, Undine Guthrie. Go ahead, Undine. And again, this is absolute last call if you want to say anything. Okay, go ahead, Undine. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, this was a beautiful ceremony, a beautiful homegoing. And what helps me with times like this is just knowing that the spirit lives on forever and that energy is not created nor destroyed, only transformed. So that brings so much comfort. I have so many memories with Mr. Mott. He was a gentleman. He was fun. He was like, I would have some of the biggest belly laughs with Mr. Mott. You could not take yourself seriously with Mr. Mott, and I appreciated that. He was intelligent and down to earth at the same time. He loved to eat, I love to eat. That's how we bonded, through like food and having a good time. We chaperoned so many events at Sty, sing, proms, everything. And we would get on that dance floor and we would get down and watch the students laugh at us, having such a good time. And that meant so much to me. Just his spirit was just faster than the sky. Such a free spirit is his true nature. A funny story that I'm just gonna share because it's why not. There was a spring feast and I just gave birth and I wasn't going to go. And he was like, you're going. And I was like, I'm breastfeeding. He was like, so what? I said, but I don't have my breast pump because I used to, pump at work. He was like, well, let's go get one. So we went to Bye Bye Baby. I got a pump. We went back to his house. I was in a separate room because Mr. Mott was a gentleman. I got the milk ready, prepared for my child that night, and we went to the spring feast, and we were just cracking up. And I don't believe, he was just there step by step with that. And, again, Mr. Mott just was someone that I can be myself with. I also had so many wonderful mentors stepping into Sty. Mr. Diaz, a big shout out. I felt so safe. Mr. Cologne, when he showed up to Sty, Dr. Nilio, Miss Archie, there were so many people that just made me feel like as like the younger person coming on board, like I'm guided, protected.
I make you feel good too.
You came along too. Yes, you too, but so many people that I'm not mentioning, but I'm so grateful for all of that. And I'm grateful to have known him because it did give me a sense of strength. And like you said, Tuesday, feeling like home when you were with him. You didn't have to front, fake any moves. You could be yourself around Mr. Mott. And I appreciate that so much. Philip, but I always called him Mr. Mott.
Thank you very much, Undine. Thank you. All right, next up, another esteemed Stuyvesant teacher, Mr. Waxman. Michael Waxman? Oh,
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I just wanted to share a quick anecdote or two, and just like everyone else, extremely sorry and very sad to learn about this. Yeah, Phil and I, we had long, deep conversations throughout the years. He was really a good friend, and I really always felt comfortable speaking to him, and us sharing different stories and advice and recommendations with each other. So I'll just offer, even though he wasn't Jewish, I'll just offer an appropriate Hebrew expression that comes to mind when I first learned of his passing. That's Baruch Dayan Met. So it's appropriate in this situation, invoking God's blessings over Phil. The one funny incident that, or situation that I'll always remember, and maybe some of you have heard it over the years, is that a number of years ago, I was in my classroom teaching, and the knock on the door by a pizza delivery guy from a nearby pizza place down the block, and I don't know, 4 or 5, pizzas came, and I didn't order a pizza. My class did not order a pizza. We were honest about it. We had no idea why. So the delivery guy just said, oh, whatever room you're in, such and such here, we had written down the number. And I said, yeah, that's correct. I'm in this room, but honestly, we didn't order a pizza, so there's some kind of mistake, obviously. So the guy just shrugged, and I said, well, do you have a name of an individual or a class or someone who ordered the pizza? And he shrugged and said, no, I don't know. I was just told to go to the room that you're in. I said, okay. And I thought about it, and I said, well, why don't you just give a quick call to your boss, the pizza place, and say maybe they have additional information that you don't have. He said, oh, good idea. We'll do it. Called. No go. They had no information except the room that I was in. So the guy, unfortunately, in a awkward situation, he said, look, I understand. I believe you, of course, but if I return to the pizza shop with the pizzas, my boss is going to get really pissed off, might fine me or take money out of my own personal salary. So I really need to return empty-handed without, with the money in hand for the pizza. Well, how does this involve Phil Mott? Well, he's the one apparently that ordered all the pizzas for his class, not me. But I did not know that. No one knew that. And I only found out approximately a week later, or a couple of days later, I don't know exactly, when, bumped into Phil in the hall. And Phil, typical fashion, like everybody else, described, screamed out in the middle of the hall, something like, Waxman, you're a pizza thief. What did you steal my pizzas for? And I had no idea what he's talking about because didn't make the connection. Then, a couple of days ago, yeah. And that's the story, that he actually ordered the pizzas. But we ended up just having some mercy on the pizza delivery guy, and we forked over the money, me and my students, for the, buy the pizzas, because we didn't know Phil, we didn't have that knowledge at the time. But a few days later, we found that out, and we had good laughs about it. And then for years, when I would be in a room or in a hallway with Phil, and there would be other colleagues, he would always tease me in front of everybody and bring that up. Oh, Waxman, he's the guy that stole my pizza. So that's just one funny incident, which some of you may not know about, but I certainly do. And I told my wife and my 2 kids about that, and they got a big laugh. So next time I eat some margarita pizza, I'm definitely gonna think of Phil. And it's my birthday today, so very special thing about Phil on my birthday.
Happy birthday. Let's wish Michael a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Okay, anybody else? I noticed in the chat, Lisa said that the halls will never be the same without him. You're absolutely right. The halls are not the same without Philip.
So true. So
Okay,
true.
we have Josh. Josh, go ahead and share your anecdote. Go right ahead, Josh. I also had you as a student, right?
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me a moment to share, and hello to all of my former teachers, Mr. Diaz, Ms. Guthrie. I see some silent folks in the crowd. Obviously, my classmates. Tuesday. I never understood why we called you that, but we called you that anyway. Abena. Andre, obviously. And then and Ms. Scheinman, although she's not there at the moment. Mr. Mott was sort of everyone's English teacher. I guess in the case of Abena, it wasn't actually her English teacher. It was sort of an English teacher in spirit. But obviously there was something much more to it. I think that what Ms. Schumann said was particularly interesting, which was that Mr. Mott had a superpower, and that superpower was to really tease out that sort of, I don't remember the verbiage that you used, feel free to jump in, but it was that
Your individualism, right?
it was more of a phrase, but yeah, it was exactly about that individualism. And Mr. Mott, I think the thing that makes him, his personality and his persona, like, so powerful is that he really made you feel special and important and different. And for anyone that sort of knew me at Stuyvesant, I think a lot of the teachers sort of tolerated my antics at best. But Mr. Mott really appreciated and encouraged me outside of the classroom, obviously, like in the context of school politics. This one time he told me, the senior class, when you were a freshman, they were like the fire. They were the fire. And now there's only a couple sparks left, of which I was one, and he named a couple others in the context of school politics. I think in the context of everything else, he probably wouldn't like, Josh, like you're mediocre at best. But in the context of school politics, he encouraged me. And at a time when I think I didn't need to feel sort of validated by anyone else, that moment has stuck with me for 20 years. That here I was thinking I was on this sort of individualized, campaign to tear things up for the benefit of the school, obviously, in my own sort of paradigm and perspective. But Mr. Mott sort of leaned into that, encouraged it, appreciated it. And that is something that I think is sort of truly profound. And I think Jahi's sort of story is emblematic of that, where we all had this sort of little taste of that experience, and he had this sort of full dad experience of Mr. Mott. And I think we all had that feeling that Mr. Mott could really make us feel special and important and supported and valued. And I think that is a really profound and unique thing, and why we're all here going on for hours talking about Mr. Mott after his passing. But I think Ms. Guthrie and Mr. Palazzo both mentioned it, is we could all just sort of take a moment to think about Mr. Mott, and we're instantly sort of feeling that frequency and that vibrance that he brought by way of his smile and his laugh, his infectious personality. And I think it's funny that, like, I recall like Mr. Mott being sort of stern at times, as sort of been alluded to, but there was no hint of any sort of paternalism. It was all just love. So Mr. Mott was a really special person, and as Andre mentioned, like, it's special to be in this community with all of you, talking about him, and despite the sad circumstance. So thank you, Barbara, for organizing this. This is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you, Josh. Well, it was all of us together. Mr. Contreras.
Well, mostly you.
No, that's not true. No. Oh, no. Mr. Contreras, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Hi, Ms. Garber. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm going to share my first and my last interaction with Phil, Mr. Mott. So I was a parent that I had never been inside the building past the lobby. My daughter was a junior. And she says, you have to go see my English teacher. So I said, fine. So then I look at the program and I'm like, it's the 10th floor. And I had no such access to the elevator at the time. So I take the stairs up. I get into the room and he says, wait, because he's having a meal. He says, wait, let me finish this. So he says, come in. He looks at me and he says, your head is dead. The little Dominican girl who fences. And, you know, Sty for a student, particularly a Latinx or Black student, can be an intimidating place. And he knew her. He knew who she was. And I'm sorry I'm saying this if my daughter's watching, she's a grad, but he even knew she had a crush on. He made the place bearable for her, and so did other people. And then I didn't have the privilege of being with him that long, but you know, for every speed on BSL dinner, when there were 6 of us from the faculty, he was a constant with the other constants that are in this room. And he always said, come here, eat, join. And said, it's okay. There's a few of us, but it means a lot. So my last interaction with him was actually after he retired. He reached out and he says, Eric, I want to go to prom, but I need a ticket. I said, you don't need a ticket, just show up, Phil. So I went outside and then they called me security because there's someone outside because and then I said, so I went outside and I said, I told you can come in. And he's like, no, is it okay? So we spoke for a while. And I said, just come in. The minute he came in with me, there was a rush of students that came to form a circle around him. And at the end of the prom, 2:00, we're trying to empty the room out. Phil's still there. And I said, do you need anywhere to go home? He's like, no, kids already invited me to go somewhere. So I say that only because he was all about the students. And my first interaction with him was about him knowing the students. And my last interaction with him was about him knowing the students. In this age of like what schools look like after COVID, I think Phil was prescient and had it right all along. Schools are about relationships, not about the way we measure teachers. Schools are about equity and race and conversations about that, and not denying those conversations. And schools should be places where we should be our authentic selves. Mr. Mott was ahead of that by years from anyone. And I will honor his memory by focusing on relationships. We should all be cognizant of how we hire and who we hire. And does it represent who we want to represent? And to be our authentic selves. He continues to teach, he's going to teach me and things that, all the I wishes. And Phil, thank you for being there for my kid. And thank you for being there for all the kids at Stuyvesant. Good to see everyone here. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Garber.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. Mr. Contreras, I asked for a ticket for that prom, and you told me I needed a ticket. I asked to go to the prom, too. I remember that. I do want to say something on a more serious note. Yes, see? I remember that. I know he went to the prom. I didn't go to the prom that year. I will remember that. Yes. But I do want to say.
I apologize, Ms. Garber.
Now you apologize. Get me a ticket for every prom from here on in.
I have no such powers anymore.
And everyone else does. But I do want to say on a serious note, I think we do agree that the atmosphere at Stuyvesant needs to change a little bit, where there's a little more warmth, a little more understanding. I think that for whatever the forces were, maybe we've moved a little bit in the wrong direction. And maybe Philip could be a role model of how to move in the right direction. It's not always about meeting the standards of a rubric. It's not always about some ideal of what a teacher is supposed to be. You're right, Mr. Contreras. It's just about, let's be human. We love our students love us. Let's teach the best we can. Let's try to change the atmosphere at Stuyvesant and make it better. We're still here. We can do it. So next up, having said that, next up, we are going to Carol Johnson, who will have a brief comment, and then to Josh, who will have a brief comment. And I think we're going to try to wrap it up at around 8 o'clock.
Hi again. You know, just listening is how much we became our parents. Most of our parents were teachers and school aides, paraprofessionals, including Phil's mother, you know, working in our elementary school. My mother taught Phil for a brief time, you know, and we actually became our parents. Back in those days, thank God, in the 60s, it was like 60, but 61. All of them taught about continuity. That's the only reason we could be here 60 years later. And still having reunions and being friends and close friends and talking and chatting on the phone and, you know, meeting, greeting. But they taught us how to reach out to different nationalities. You know, we had different days, Mexico Day and African American Day, and my mother had French Day, and I mean, it was all these different days to celebrate different people, nationalities. This was so amazing. I'm not going to share any stories because there's 6-year-olds. I guess you can imagine how many funny stories we have that could end up being embarrassing. So I'm going to keep that to myself. But with seeing Valerie here, there's a few people that I wanted to reach out to and they couldn't be here. I gave my info to your cousin Bobby, and these are other friends that go back to 1961. And those were two of the guys that was the closest to it.
Yes.
So if you have another...
I'm sorry, the audio is very bad.
Memorial?
Carol, Mr. All right, the audio is very bad. Do you mind if we just move on to Josh for a minute?
Okay, can I reach out a personal thing?
Oh, yes. Sure. Yeah, go ahead, reach out.
Okay.
Oh, are you reaching out now, or you're reaching out by text?
To Valerie in the chat.
Oh yeah, go right ahead. Go ahead, Josh. Did Josh want to say a few words?
The chat was disabled.
I'm assuming it's a different Josh?
I don't know. I just got the name Josh. I didn't get a last name. Okay, and okay, we found a video of we found a photo. Do you want to share the screen to show the photo?
I put it as my background, and this is 2017. I forgot I had this photo. If I can show you guys.
Oh,
and Philip is right there. And if I don't know if I can figure out how to share. It's too many windows on my screen, but I will do my best. Just 1 second. And maybe, and I think this probably was the last prom that Philip attended. So can you see it? He's right here. And Ms. Garber, there you are.
Yeah, I see. Huh.
So, yep, that's our prom.
Very nice. No, I think maybe Philip went to the prom in 2018 also, I think.
Maybe, but could be. This one is 2017. I think he was there one more year.
Okay.
You're probably right.
All right, anybody else want to say anything in the chat or anything quickly or? No, okay. All right. So what I'm hoping is that perhaps we can compile a list of names and emails, contact people, so that if you'd like to get in touch with someone, you can. Perhaps we can also meet again. Maybe we can have like a Philip Mott anniversary day next year. I don't know, keep it going. But I really would love to thank you very much. It's definitely the audience and the speakers that have really made this such a beautiful program. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time and saying these beautiful, beautiful words. Thank you.
Thank you for being a
Miss
beautiful
Miss
host.
Garber, can I say one really quick thing?
Sure.
Really quickly. So last time I was at Stuyvesant, I had the privilege of being able to give a speech. It was in the lunchroom, but it was still a nice speech. I gave a shout out to Mr. Mott then. I had just found out that he was no longer at the school. And I'll just reiterate something I told to the students then. Mr. Mott was a drama teacher, but he was much more than that. But what I told those students was to value the arts as he did, because with all the math and science and comp sci that you can learn, there's a human element that he embodied, that we need to foster. And as much as we love our teachers, we're not here talking about exactly what he taught in class. It's more than that. It's what he taught us outside the classroom. It's what he taught us as a human being, and that comes through with the songs and with the performances and with the art. So I just want to say to jump on what Mr. Contreras was saying, take that piece of Mr. Mott with us, and to always lean towards the arts whenever we can. That's it. Thank you. Thanks again.
Okay, so, sorry, what we need to do is we're going to wrap it up and stop the stream. You can put your email in the chat. We will try to compile everyone's contact numbers. And let's just thank Philip. Thank you, Philip. I know you're watching us today. And thank you. Thank you for showing us a different way of living. May you rest in peace. And remember, you live your best life. And that's how you honor Philip. Don't cry for him. Just live the best you can be. Thank you. Let's give ourselves a hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garber. Thank you,